Hello, guys. Welcome to a Train Parrot and to another episode of the Private Elite. In this episode, we're going to do pinescript. This is going to be a full hour where I'm going to focus on how to write a script on pinescript. These sessions are private, are for elite members. We usually do it on the last Thursday of every month, specifically for pinescript, but every Thursday we actually have TA, as you probably know already. That's the one that gets most of the people viewing. And I got you here on the chat. So if you have any questions while we are explaining how to do things in pinescript, you can always stop me there. You're literally in front of my face. So if you have any question, I'm gonna try to help you understanding better how to use pinescript. And in this session, we're gonna focus. Yeah, there was a last minute vote, but I prepared the session with the one that was winning, which was multi indicator strategy backtesting. We usually do a poll as well on these sessions to make sure that you decide what you want to learn. And we got 3 votes for that one, um, 1 hour before the stream. And then right at the last minute, this one with 6 votes entered there. So I'm going to try to do my best to cover also the top one at the end of the video. But since that is not prepared, I'm going to start with multiple indicator backtesting strategy. And it's going to be oriented to beginners. And if you want to be part of this, because this video is going to go public tomorrow, edit with timestamps and everything. Every Friday we do that, we release it live. And if you are watching it and it's something that you would like to be part of, you can join the next session, which is going to be end of October. Every Thursday we have TA with all coins, but specifically pinescript is at the end of the month, like today. So let's get started. I'm going to explain what we're going to do. And I had a little chat with ChatGPT, and I was wondering, you know, multiple strategies that we can look into that combine multiple indicators. But there is one thing that I'm not going to include in this session, which is multiple time frames. Okay, that puts one level of complexity higher because multiple time frame means that we need to be dealing with repainting. Not that no multiple time frame doesn't have repainting, but repainting can get a lot more tricky because multiple time frames is the perfect recipe to do your first repainting ever. What is repainting? Repainting is when you do a strategy or an indicator that even after intracandle action repaints some decisions done in the past. Okay, so we know that intracandle things are expected to move. That is not repainting. Okay, repainting is post the intracandle. The candle already settled, and you still see in the back things moving. That is, for example, a buy signal, a sell signal telling you 3 candles ago it was a buy, but you refresh the chart and suddenly the buy signal is gone. And that's because you're doing a look ahead, you're looking into data in the future to print 3 candles ago. And then when you settle the future candles, well, it's a little bit confusing, but today's session is not about that. We're going to keep that complexity out of the way, and we're going to focus just on combining multiple indicators with different lengths, different parameters, different types of indicator. And I got a few candidates in here, but I decided to go for the first one. It's just so simple. It is full of value. I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert. I'm not gonna focus on how profitable it is. I'm not gonna make it profitable. I'm not gonna work trying to aim to let's fix it. That takes a lot more than an hour, and for that I use optimization. I use other techniques, and it gets a lot more complex too. So this is beginner friendly. Is how to write a combination of indicators with multiple conditions into a single strategy and then see it working. And troubleshooting the things, the problems that we're going to have, I'm sure we will have some problems and we will try to solve them together. Okay. Ideally, you have your laptop with you and you have already trading view and you're ready to start doing your first lines of code. There's been already 2 episodes of this, and they're in a playlist in YouTube, so you can find them there. There should be also a playlist on Patreon specifically for all the PineScript tutorials. If not, ask me in the community and we can find them for you if you cannot find them. So, as I said, we're going to go for trend surf and snapback. In this particular strategy, as you can already see, we're going to use a long EMA to as a trend filter. Usually you go for the 200, the 100, 300, even 300. People use it. This is independent of the time frame, right? So in whichever time frame you are, 200 MA should be a long, consider a long trend filter. Then we're gonna get an RSI. We could play with an RSI fast. RSI 5 is very fast. 14 is standard, and we can use different levels as a threshold to enter on a long or to enter on a short. Yeah, 25 is oversold, 75 is overbought. Then we can use the Bollinger Band as well with standard parameters. And when we reclaim the lower band, we could enter a deal as long as we are oversold and as long as we are in an uptrend. And I'm going to introduce use of ATR to do some sort of trailing, and that's how complex I'm gonna get today. Um, and yeah, this is just too verbose, so let's get just started. Let's inspect what are the entries so we can fully visualize what we are trying to achieve. Um, for example, I left a line in here at level 30. And I went for 30 because 25 makes just too little signals. So I consider oversold below 30. I went for 30. And I placed that line there. You can see the RSI is below it. So that's one of the conditions. And the second condition, let me bring in all the plots, is that there is a Bollinger Band. And let me find a place where it's more clear. Yeah. For example, in here, you see the lower Bollinger Band, and then you see a green candle that is reclaiming that Bollinger Band as support because the close, let's magnify it, it's kind of above the blue line, right? So we close above it. So that is the snapback that I think these people are calling it snapback, is a reclaim of the lower band with a candle going up because in the previous one we were closing below, in the next one we are closing above. That is our signal that together with being below 30 and together with uh, being above the long-term moving average, yeah, just by a millimeter, but we are above the red line that is the 200 MA. So it's quite a peaky entry. It's got a long of list of things. It's not gonna be the best strategy for BTC, even though kind of ChatGPT is trying to sell me the idea that this works great with BTC in the 1 hour, but it doesn't really. So that's 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 just a detail, right? We want to learn PineScript. We want to learn how to do this, and then we focus on improving the strategy. So I'm going to create a separate layout somewhere else. Let's call it test. And just to start from scratch. And let's create a strategy. We, oh, there were some changes in here. No. Okay, cool. This is going to be called, yeah, let's just save it as live strat. And when you get that, you get boilerplate code, just a template. Um, and it's basically just doing something so you can see. You can even add it to the chart and see it like that. You can see that it's a strategy that takes longs and shorts, but actually we're not going to use any of that. And we're going to change the name to live strat. If I save it with, in this case, I'm on Mac, so when I save it, I use Command S, and it's already gonna complain because we're not really doing anything. Let me remove all these comments. I don't care about those comments. We are using Pine version 6, and let's start with the beginning. Okay, what do we need? We need EMA, RSI, Bollinger Band, ATR. We need a ton of things. So this part I think is a waste of time. I'm not gonna code this. These are the inputs. The inputs are um, basically implementing, capturing from the user numbers that you want the user to control, right? We have two options. We can bake in those numbers statically here in the code itself, but then we cannot interact with this menu. We cannot change things. We need to be saving the script every time we change a number, and that is annoying. So it's good to have inputs, and I'm not gonna bother you on how to write all of this. It's gonna take 10 minutes of video, and it's always the same, right? Input, this one is an int. Some of them are going to be floating point numbers with a comma. Um, well, in Spanish is comma, in English is a dot, but you get the point. Uh, and inline, it means that it's going to place uh, multiple inputs in the same line. It's going to try to do that at least. So we are capturing parameters for the EMA. The length is going to be 200 by default, the RSI length 5, the length of the Bollinger Band 20, the deviation of the bands of the Bollinger Band as well. We have a multiplier of 2. Later, once we see the performance of the strategy, we can very comfortable, use the menu and change those numbers and see if it improves in a manual way. Some people use also extensions in Chrome to do that. Personally, if I'm going to step into optimization, into finding what parameters maximize performance, then I don't even use pinescript. I use Python, and I let the thing, I burn a little bit of CPU to find the best parameters. But remember that that is very risky to do, to optimize, because when you optimize, your strategy works well in a specific time, and most likely you are um, incurring into over optimization issues. That means that you trade with that live, and the performance is really bad, really poor. Okay, so we got our menu, we got that. We still have an error. Why do we have an error? Well, because this is a strategy, and at least we should call any function of strategy. You cannot declare that you're going to do a strategy and you don't do anything. Pine gets annoyed. It expects you to do something. But let's carry on building this thing. So we're going to need an EMA, and we want to plot it, we want to see it, and we want to change the color. We want to do a bunch of things with that. So I'm going to create an EMA, and I'm going to call it EMA1. Why? Because I might have an EMA2 later if I want to play with another EMA. So this, every time that you need to do some TA, you start with TA dot, and here it is. I type E, and I get immediately a list of every function in TA, technical analysis, that starts with E, and then I hit enter, and it auto completes. And an EMA, if I stay there, I see immediately the documentation, so I don't even have to remember anything, and I haven't written Pine in months, but I know immediately that I need a source. The source, the default is close. The closing price is what we typically use for any TA. So I'm just gonna write close, comma. As soon as I type comma, you see that the next parameter goes in blue, reminding me that that comes next. Am I gonna write in here 14? No. Am I gonna write 200? No. I'm gonna use one of the inputs, because we need to wire up what the user picked in the menu to the calculation of the EMA. So where is my length of EMA? Let's look into the inputs we already have. It's called EMA len1. There you go. So I type again EM and I get autocomplete to offer me everything that starts with that. And we got straight away that, enter. Let's continue. Let's speed up. Let's calculate RSI1 as well. TA, RSI, and source is again close. Length, we got a length for the RSI. There, the input in the line number 7. And we need now to do Bollinger Bands. Bollinger Bands is going to be a bit more interesting to calculate. So we're going to calculate first the middle line of the Bollinger Band. Remember, Bollinger Band has 3 moving averages. The middle is going to be TA, and we're going to calculate it with an SMA. Okay, well, that's the standard way of calculating the central line of the Bollinger Band with the close, and we need a length, and we do have a length. Yeah, BB len 1. Cool. And now that we have the middle line, we need to calculate the standard deviation. And for that, we are going to do STD1, and we do TA, standard deviation with the close, with the length, we need Bollinger Band length, and bias. Yeah, I'm not sure if bias is optional. Do I need bias for this? What if I save like this? Okay, I don't seem to have a problem with that yet. Let me cheat a little bit. Yeah, there shouldn't be any problem. We don't need to put any bias. Now that I have the standard deviation calculated, we are going to use it to calculate the upper and the lower bands. One is the multiplier against the standard deviation. So we add that to the middle band and we get the upper one. And if we deduct that from the middle band, we get the lower band. Let's do that. The upper band and BB lower band are going to be like this. And so for this, we're going to use the middle band, and the upper is plus standard deviation multiply by the multiplier, which in this case is my 2. That 2 is my multiplier, and it's this. So all I need to do now is, for the lower band, is instead of adding, is using a minus. So I get the 2 bands. I have EMA, RSI, Bollinger Band. What else do I need? I need ATR. I'm going to use the ATR for my trailing stop loss. It's cool to know how to do trailing. There's multiple ways to do trailing. There's a way that pinescript calculates the trailing for you. You can give it straight to strategy and say, you do the trailing, right? And I'm going to just calculate it for you, the entry, and then you trail it. But I want you to see how to calculate it. You're not going to learn anything if you delegate everything to pinescript, specifically when you're getting started. Neither if you start doing on day one everything with ChatGPT. Remember, ChatGPT is gonna dry your brain. If you don't learn anything and you delegate everything to ChatGPT, you just become dumb. You need to really get the core, the fundamental, the pillars of understanding things. Otherwise, ChatGPT is gonna give you any crap answer, and you're not even gonna know if ChatGPT is wrong. You don't want to be there. And just 5 minutes ago, I asked ChatGPT to do the trailing and it did it all wrong. But I saw the code and I noticed it was wrong. But imagine yourself if you never done anything in pinescript. How do you know that the trailing is wrong? And you deploy that with your own money. So get to learn a little bit of pinescript and at least identify basic things and what's going on in the code before you fully delegate, all your brain activity to AI, or you want to get demised. ATR, let's calculate it. ATR, and it just requires a length, and we got a length there, so it's called risk ATR length. Yeah, perfect. We got the length, and I think we're kind of ready to start doing the actual strategy, right? So let's call it a long signal. When to enter. We're gonna calculate in here when to enter. We already said that we wanna be in an uptrend. So what does it mean to be in an uptrend? That the closing price is closing above the EMA. Okay, so it's as simple as close above EMA. Now we need more than that. We're not just gonna enter because of this single thing. We need multiple conditions, and we wanna we want the RSI to be above certain threshold, and our threshold is let's use 30, as I say. RSI 1 needs to be above 30. There you go. Second condition done. Now we need the most um, interesting condition, which is how do we say that we cross above the lower Bollinger Band? Basically, let's visualize it here. I think I showed you before this, but just in case, because it's always good to have a mental picture of what you're doing before you do it in the code, because the code is so abstract. Then you see the code and it doesn't really fit. In here, for example, you see the Bollinger Band, the price close in red below it, and in the next candle, slightly above it. So that is a crossover, but I'm not going to do it with the function crossover. I want you uh, to think about what is the condition that we are looking for. We're looking for a candle that just closed above in the current candle, and we are looking for the previous candle to be below that level. That's what we are looking for. If you can express it in English very quickly, you can also put in a condition with practice, of course. So the close needs to be above what? The lower band, right? BB down. Uh, that is the current candle. So the current close is above the lower band. And the close one candle ago, you write it like that. If you want three candles, you put like this in the past. In this case, is the previous. The previous needs to be below that same value. So it now is above, and the previous was below. Um, and we get the full condition. But this variable has that condition now inside. We can think about it. That thing is going to say yes or no in the current candle, whether we need to enter or not. But we are still not in a position. We need to interact with the object of pinescript called strategy to be able to do things in the strategy. So the object strategy contains tons of things that you can do: variable numbers, the position average price, entry name, percent of equity that you're using, open profit, percentage in profit, all the things. Whether you want to consult that query, that object, or if you want to action things, or even to leave where is it going to be your stop loss, your stop limit, everything that you can do in the exchange, you can in theory do it with strategy. So we're going to do an entry, and we need to give it a name to the entry. So I'm going to call it, just for simplicity, I'm going to call it long. And here I need to have an object strategy long to declare that that's what we want to do. And I think Do I need anything else? Disable alert, alert, comment, stop, limit, quantity. We're going to control the quantity, but we're going to control it from the menu for simplicity. But you could here um, micromanage this thing and give it everything. Let me see how I did it because I want to keep it um, in the same way. So my entry, I think I did it. Float strategy. Yeah, I did just like that. It's very simple. You just need two parameters. But when do we enter? We cannot just enter at any time. So we need to say if there's a long signal, then enter. And what's going to happen is um, trade analysis, total open trades, one. How many trades we have taken? One, and it's a long. Why is just one? Why is still open? Because all we did is say if the condition is met, enter. Yeah. So in theory, if I go back in time, if my eyes are working, I'm going to find one position in the middle of nowhere, never exiting and potentially in profit. So we are in the 1 hour time frame. Good. I think, oh, let me do something intelligent and go to the list of trades and click. Yeah, there you go. So if you click on this nowadays, it takes you there. And now we are 70,000 in profit. Um, but we can click in the object strategy and we can go into properties and let's review what settings are being used. Because in the strategy object at the top of the file, I didn't put anything. I didn't specify initial capital. I didn't specify commission, nothing. So in pinescript, you can do it from the code explicitly there in the code. And if you want, you can do it from here, or you can do it in both places. So whatever is in the code then appears here, and then you can tweak it further from the menu itself. So let's do $1,000. And the size of the order, I'm just going to pick something random, percentage of equity. So we are going to use the full 1,000 on the first trade. If we close it, realize profit on the second trade, is going to use again, sorry, 100% of it, not 1,000. So that will be 10x leverage. And commission, just let's just leave it unrealistic, zero commission. Let's say you got lucky. So this 1,000 so far now is almost 2,000 in profit unrealized, and it's moving with the price because it's an open position that we haven't taken care of closing. Let's go into the code. And yeah, we haven't closed anything. So we are going to work now on closing the deal. Uh, to exit a deal, we can do anything we want. We can use an indicator to exit. For example, we can say when once we are above the middle band of the Bollinger Band, we exit. We can say if I'm 3% in profit, I close. We can say when we are 2 times ATR, I close. We can say let's place a trailing stop loss and let's move with that as high as we can. And that's the one we are going to do today because I think in previous sessions, I already did some of the previous one. Just 1 second, sorry. And so we're going to do the trailing. And for the trailing, we're going to need this ATR. We're going to place with this risk multiplier 2.5 times the ATR below the price um, to have that trailing stop loss following us to the upside. So far, this strategy is just long. So how can we do that? We have the ATR. I'm going to use the object strategy exit. So the strategy exit allows me to refer to a previous entry by its original name and say under which conditions and how much of it I want to close. I can close partially or I can close fully. Here we're going to close fully, okay? And so I need to give it a name and I'm going to call it, I don't know, exit, no, trailing SL. That's going to be the name. And I need to, sorry, can I get the menu again? Yeah, from entry. From the entry was called, as you remember, it was called long. So we are exiting from that long and we're going to use a stop. And now we need that price. Where do we locate that stop so once it hits, it closes the deal? And as I said, we're going to locate it at this amount of times ATR below the price. So we're going to calculate some variable that's called long stop. This is my stop price for my long, and it's going to be calculated as the close price, and we need to put it below the close, right? So if it goes below that level, we need to place that stop loss somewhere below. So it's close minus ATR, which I already calculate, multiplied by the multiplier. So 2.5 times ATR below the closing price. And then that long stop, I'm going to place it there. And let's see if it closes somewhere. So you can see this long enter here, and it trailed all the way here. This long here, trailed there. Some of them are going to take losses. We can see in the strategy that there's plenty of losses and wins and stuff. But I'm seeing this working, right? And you get ChatGPT, and then you look at the strategy tester, and then you think, well, it's not working that well. But do you notice something? We just get entries and exits. Nothing is telling us if this is really working well. There could be 1,000 things in here that are broken, but it's just fully under the carpet. We have no clue what this thing is doing. So we need to get some visuals. I want to see the indicators. I want to see that my entry is happening at the right time. I want to spend some time getting familiar with what the strategy is doing and confirming if it's correctly doing things. So I'm going to start printing some stuff. And in pinescript and in general in TradingView, you have, two areas where you can put things. You can put things. I just want a standard RSI. Well, let's get any. Um, this one, for example, this one is in a separate panel relative to the price. So when some indicator is printing in here, it's called overlay. When it's true, it prints stuff here. When overlay is false, it prints in a separate panel. So that's just the way a TradingView works. Let's get rid of the volume. So I have now to display multiple indicators. Can I put, for example, the Bollinger Band in here and the RSI in a separate panel coming from the same indicator? Yes, I think in Pine 4, Pine 5, they introduced that thanks to a small parameter where every time you plot, you decide where to place it. Great, super convenient. Let's go and do that. So MA, I'm going to put it on top of the price because that's the place you should put it. So you can see it next to the price. RSI in a separate panel. Bollinger Band with the price. And ATR, my trailing stop loss, I also want to see it. I want to see it in action. That also is going to be overlay. But look at this. My strategy says that overlay is true. So what I'm going to do is to make this guy false. And another second I need, sorry. So I just made it not overlay. And what I'm going to do is to decide each one where I print it. So let's go with that. Let's start with the easiest one, which is let's plot the EMA. Let's plot the EMA, which is EMA1. Let's do a color red, and let's do force overlay. That's the magic parameter that allows me to control that. Force overlay, true. So the way this works is that you make your strategy not overlay, so everything goes in panels, but you can force the overlay. So we are going to use that at our advantage by forcing the overlay of the EMA to be next to the price. But with the RSI, guess what? I'm not going to force anything. I'm just going to let it be the default at the moment, which is no overlay. Series RSI 1, color, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And let's save. And where is the RSI? Oh, it's not working. Yeah, it's not working because when you change the overlay of a strategy, you need to remove it from the chart and you need to add it again. So it fully refreshes and then it adds this new separate panel for the RSI and the MA remains there. So you see, we have now strategies, got things in two separate areas and we can control it by using that parameter. So RSI out of the way. Now we go with the Bollinger Band. Bollinger Band is going to have three things. So I'm going to use a little bit of copy pasting here. Bollinger Band, midline, and I'm going to force the overlay, of course. Color, do I want anything else? I'm just going to stick with that and save it. Yeah, there it is, the central line. And for the other two lines, just copy paste and do BB up and BB down. There you go. That's our beautiful Bollinger Band. Notice that if you see too busy the chart at some point, and at some point you no longer are interested in seeing the Bollinger Band, you go to Style of the strat, and here you can control, temporarily hiding things that are bothering you. That's also useful. Now, we got everything, but we still don't have the ATR. I want to see my trailing stop loss. For example, in this area, I want to see that it was trailing all the way up in here. Then later we can hide the Bollinger Band for a minute. Actually, let's do it now. So when the ATR appears, we can immediately see it. So I'm expecting to see something in these terms, something that goes up, 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 up. And look at what's going on. This came back up, back down. So we got an error there. We are in, I haven't even put the ATR in the chart, but I already know that there's going to be an error. So I'm preparing you for that kind of frustration. And we're going to solve it. We're going to solve it. So ATR, we need to basically plot the long stop. Long stop is where it's placed the trailing stop. So I'm going to just go ahead and do plot the long stop. Ooh, but it's appearing here. No, it should be force overlay. Correct? There you go. And we need to hide all the crap again. And we just stay with this one. You see that they are all called plot. If you find yourself in that confusion, because I'm going too fast, You can add a parameter called title, and then you call it ATR here inside. And then when you are here, now instead of being called plot, which is the default, it's going to be called ATR, which is much easier to then recognize among so many of them. So you can see at the moment we open, the ATR started going up, price went up, and trailing went down. That is not the behavior we want from an ATR. We want an ATR trailing stop to stay there, then to go up, to stay, not to go down. So it should strictly go up. And once it reaches a high, if the price comes back down, it should have closed here and not here. Okay? Now, another story is that this one is performing better. It's performing better because it's higher risk, right? It only hits here, and it's actually not even hitting properly um, the stop, because it placed the stop in here, but then intra candle came back down in the next candle with the previous stop loss. So there's a bunch of things that need fixing anyways. So how are we gonna keep that ATR from never going lower? Because every candle we calculated in based on the in the close. So what we need to do is we need to keep track of the previous candle long stop, and if it goes below it, we don't change it. So we do what I was explaining. It only gets overridden if it goes up. If it wanted to go down, we just stick with the value of the previous candle. So pinescript has variables that are series. It's a series of values. Every candle has a next value and next value and next value. And you already saw how close, for example, you can say close 6 and you go 6 candles back, because everything, every variable in pinescript is a series. It tracks all the way back as if it was a spreadsheet that has columns with values back in time. It's very similar to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this be zero point 0.0, and I'm going to say, if I'm in a position, if I'm already in a position, let's calculate the long stop either being the previous value or um, or the same, because if it went down, I want to keep the same. If I'm not in a position, I'm going to make long stop just turn into 0. So how do we do that? How do we know we are in a position? Who knows about the strategy? The strategy object. So you type strategy and you put dot and you get all this information. So to be in a position size is in theory different than 0. Yeah? Let me see if I did it like that last time. Yeah, I did it like this. There's other ways. You can use the average price. You can use, maybe Pine 6 already has a function much more elegant than what I'm doing here, but historically, this is the way I used to do it. So strategy position size, different than 0, it means we are in a position. So we should recalculate the long stop, and to recalculate in a series to write down the next value in the next candle, you do it with this. So notice that this is just an equal and this is a dot equal. So by doing that, I'm telling pinescript that all I'm doing is I'm writing the value for the next candle, but in the previous candle, I'm not touching it. Yeah, I'm just extending the series. That is how to assign values to a series. So long stop is going to be um, math. Let's do the max the max between um, the previous long stop, which is that, right? That's the previous long stop and long stop. And long stop recalculated. We need to calculate long stop, which is all this calculation. So this is the new calculation of long stop, which could go lower, and this is the previous long stop. So we are going to stick with the maximum between those two. Um, yeah, that way we keep the previous one if this is going lower. That's just a strategy. But we need to take care of something. The first time that we're going to do this, long stop one is going to have nothing. So why? Because when the strategy starts, it doesn't have an initial value. So the way we deal with that in pinescript, and sorry if this is going to sound a little bit complicated, but basically here I'm going to say if it doesn't have a value or is a not available, then uh, just default to 0. Otherwise, use the actual long stop previous candle value. Uh, in that way, you can see now that is only increasing and then reaching this point where it closes the deal. And as soon as it closes the deal, my long stop goes to 0. And it goes to 0 because um, it's just defaulting to that. Um, let's actually make it explicit. Long stop, if we are not in a position, put it back to 0. And yeah, so tester, let's look at performance. This is going up, but let's never believe anything ever, ever, ever before checking. So let's put this into 1,000. Order size is 100%. That's what we were gonna use. Pyramiding. Well, it's actually doing good now. I mean, I might have done a mistake. This shouldn't be doing that good. ATR. For example, this is a loss. Well, this is a win. Um, this is no, this is a loss too. This is a kind of break even. Yeah, there are a few wins in here. Let's look at the performance, no, trade analysis, list of trades. There's plenty of losses. There must be one of them that really performed well, and maybe that's the case. Let's bring in again all the indicators to do a check on whether we are doing everything okay. It's as important as learning the language and the codes of everything, to be able to see things and to spot what where is it doing something that is not what is expected to do. So let's challenge everything it's doing. So in here, this candle closed above the Bollinger Band on the lower end. We are above EMA and RSI. I need to know when we are below 30. So I'm going to add something else to the strategy in here where I print the RSI. I'm going to add an horizontal line located at 30. And that horizontal line is in here. So, wait a second. This enter right there, and we are not below 30. So could it be I did it upside down? RSI is above 30. It needs to be below 30. Uh, maybe that's gonna perform better. Let's see. Oh my god, this is crazy. So basically, what I discovered accidentally on Bitcoin is that being oversold on the RSI 5 um, doesn't perform as good as not being oversold, which is to be above 30. That's crazy. Just a flip of a sign makes this perform a lot better. With a profit factor of 1.7, 43% profitable trades, which is poor, right? It's on the lower end. It's taking 160 trades. And let's see another time frames. 4 hour, 8 hour, daily. It's coming down 15. No, it doesn't survive 15 minutes. And Sevi said, damn, I got confused with UK time and CET and only came in right now. Oh, sorry, mate. But yeah, you can watch the recording. You can actually move it back in time and start from scratch, but it won't be live, of course. So, yeah, this is working well, but obviously I was intending to do this. That's what GPT wanted. So you can change things from the code, you can change things directly from the strategy. Like, for example, we can change some inputs and see how it goes with a 50 EMA, and you can keep uh, this like that. So we see what's the effect of changing things. Of course, there's always the risk of the overfitting, right? Changing a few parameters here and there is not going to have a huge effect. Now I'm in love with the opposite. In terms of overfitting, changing here and there some parameters is not that big of a deal. Um, the things that cause overfitting obviously is the number one reason is to use optimization. So if you use optimization, you have a high likelihood of being overfitted, which means that you're just seeing something that shines in a period, but in any other period, it does horribly bad. It's married to that period. That's overfitting. And if how to avoid overfitting, well, that's a topic for a long time, but the principles of not overfitting are usually around use less indicators, do an optimization that works in a more extended period, and ultimately confirm, use techniques to detect overfitting. So you can say, okay, this was overfitted, and you just scrap it before the actual strategy starts losing money in the market, which is already too late, or do paper trading as well for an extended period of time. Having too many indicators and then using optimization together is almost the best way to get wrecked, because it almost 99% of the time is going to lead you into overfitting and into just losses, just paper results and then real money losses. So keep it with less indicators, something that really has an alpha, and use something that is not just TA, right? Using purely TA is extremely overcrowded at the moment. Every single retail uses TA because that's pretty much all they've got. Okay, so it's good to, in your strategy, use sources of data that are beyond TA, like do an RSI of the number of longs, number of shorts, liquidation levels, order flow, whatever is available to you. You're going to be better off than just doing TA on TradingView. Let's cover a little bit of how to do strategies on ChatGPT. I do not do strategies on ChatGPT, and I'm going to tell you why. Sorry to complain so much, but I need to keep pass on the experience, right? If the experience wasn't good, I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to give you crap content. And if you just tell ChatGPT, do this, and you copy paste it in here, first it's not going to compile. Then you're going to fix the compiling issues. Then there will be 10 errors that you don't know and you're not good at coding, so you won't see. So you will inherit and take with you to a real account. So be aware of that. Number one. Number two, ChatGPT, at least in the way that most people are going to use it for this, doesn't have a loop of a virtuosity loop. I don't know how to say that in English. It's like the opposite of vicious circle. Yeah. Uh, anyways, um, we need a good loop. We need a positive reinforcing loop that is automated. We need AI to make changes to the code, to put the code somewhere. We need AI to execute it and to know that it made a messed up. It needs to know by itself. So by itself, it can fix the issue and then put a new version in an automated way without you having to copy back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. That is ideal, and that's why I prefer the combination of Claude Code. That's just one example. You can go for Gemini CLI or whatever, something that runs in a terminal that reads the code directly in Python um, from your files, and that you tell this thing, build a strategy, backtest it, optimize it, test overfitting, do the whole thing. And I'm gonna be back when you're done, okay? And finish it and make me money. And here's my bank account details and do the whole thing. That's the idea. It won't happen, right? You will need much more than just saying that. I don't want to get you FOMOing into that idea too quickly, because it requires also your own part. At least AI haven't got there to just do it by itself. It still requires someone knowing what the hell we're doing. But that setup is a lot faster to get something working than ChatGPT. Now, if you insist with using ChatGPT after all the bad news I said, um, basically you need to ask for strategies. I don't know. This was a prompt that I asked. Basically, I asked for something standard that many people use, just for the sake of educational purposes. ChatGPT won't know what works, what really performs. It will just made up things. It will tell you that this is high likely going to work with your meme coin, and then you test it and it won't, right? But it's very educational, really, to learn how to put all those things together, to understand how it works. And any prompt that you say, just build. I tend to say, build a strategy that uses basic indicators, use combination of indicators that belong to different domains. For example, don't combine only indicators of momentum. Attempt to build indicators that complement and that bring in new value. For example, volume with momentum, with breakout indicators, support and resistance, and combine them in a clever way so that we get exposure to higher time frames, lower time frames. We haven't got into that yet. Or different lengths, like for example a long-term EMA with something more sniper kind of indicator. um, and then I also ask ChatGPT to not just consider purely the entry, but to also consider risk management, position sizing. And I ask for risk management in terms of stop loss, trailing stop loss, adding to the position, reducing the size of the position under certain circumstances. Uh, and I stay away as much as I can from DCAing just by deviations. I DCA with TA, with new, fresh signals that are high quality. So, we get a stream of signals that the price comes down. The first one didn't play out. The second didn't play out. The third didn't play out. Eventually, one will play out. That's kind of the idea if I have to DCA. And yeah, that's pretty much how I ask for things. Um, when I ask for something on pinescript, if I want to do it with Claude, I say all of this, but I say subject to certain performance that I'm expecting, subject to certain levels of overfitting that I'm willing to risk. Um, and then he's going to be in charge then later of validating those aspects as well, which in my opinion are extremely important. You cannot skip them. And we ran out of time. I hope that last wrap up of ChatGPT made any sense. I didn't write any actual prompt. I just explained how I build them. But this is the third session. In October, there will be another one. We are going to send up, as every month, Jose, we need to send, what is it called? A poll asking you guys if you want us to continue with pinescript sessions. If you find value on these ones, make sure that you vote, because some other people are not as interested. They're going to vote against it. So we will find if next month we continue with this. So far, people are voting that they find value on this. So if you are watching this on Friday, that's because you're probably not a member. You're watching it publicly in the edit version, and you want to be part of this, yeah, there's a link in the description. You can join Patreon. You need to join as an elite. This is the top tier, the hardcore fans of TTP. So I appreciate that. That really helps the channel. Magnum is saying amazing possibilities, very clearly explained. Again, thanks. Thank you, Mariano. I'm learning loads from these sessions. Uh, I enjoy teaching. This is my bread and butter. I'm the happiest during the day when I'm teaching something. So I can believe I'm doing this for money. I love it. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Take care.